Welcome to SoMa. Sophie and Marianne invite you to join us in a conversation about topics interesting us and hopefully interesting you as well. Looking forward to a conversation with you all. Before we dive into today's conversation, I wanted to let you know that we came up with a fun idea for everybody who wants to support our podcast. So, over on Patreon, and you can get a link to our accounts there in the show notes. It's patreon.com, explore Soma. We are running a raffle where you can win a custom made, custom knit pair of socks. The color choices are yours. There will be examples, also examples on our Instagram account. It's your chance to get an awesome hand knit item. And if you know anything about knitting and the world of fiber, you know that that's a very valuable item. Well, we hope to see you there and be part of our community. We're trying to do a lot of really fun things. I think we're already doing a lot of fun things. All right, see you there and enjoy today's podcast. So, are we ready?
Are we ready? Yes, we are.
Okay, deep breath. Hello, Sophie. How are you doing today?
Hi, Marianne. Yeah, I'm pretty fine today. Thank you. How are you doing?
Excellent. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's I'm loving that we have good weather and all of those things because I get really impacted by that. And I just got back from San Diego to the Navajo reservation where we are living right now. And I had a lot of time to think and to why I'm driving. It's a long, it's a very long drive. There were a couple of things which were happening while I was in San Diego, discussions I had with friends about environment, something we have talked about before. And then I came across a quote, and I want to read it to you. The quote is by one of my favorite authors. Now, I have a lot of favorite authors, I have to admit, but it's Maya Angelou. I first read her books a long time ago, when probably over 30 years ago, and they were very significant for me at the time. So I found this quote and I'm like, oh, here she is speaking to me again. And I want to read the quote to you really quick. Hope and fear cannot occupy the same space. Invite one to stay. End of quote.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I want to talk about this quote and what
there
it
is a lot
means.
to talk about between fear and hope. But before I go into my philosophical aspect of it, why is this quote resonating with you?
Well, really on many levels. I found that I was getting really angry at the world and at people, seeing so many natural disasters happening, seeing just the crazy heat. I was driving by Phoenix. And just to put this in really quick, by the time you all are listening, it's probably a little bit later. So it's not that kind of weather event right now. But I was driving by Phoenix and they had 120 degrees Fahrenheit on a regular basis. People were getting burned from the asphalt. People would get like heat strokes and fall down and get 3-degree burns just from laying there, not being able to get up, or which it's just crazy. And at the same time, other areas had so much rain that their bridges fell down. And I look around me and nobody seems to think that it's time we really change and do something about it. So I got really into fear in many ways, of feeling very lonely in my efforts. As an example, this is kind of a silly example, but it's an example. Where I'm living, there's no recycling. So I go through great pains to collect all my recyclables. And when I go to a place where I can find a place to give my recycling to, I do it. So at this trip, I took it all to San Diego and then gave it to the city recycling. And then there are people which have curbside recycling and don't even care about knowing what can go in, what cannot go in. It is a symptom of my overall disillusionment or disappointment with the world at this point. But I did go into fear, I want to say, for my grandchildren, which a little, and thinking, what is the world they're going to have? Is that, can they live a good life? And also being angry at friends which were saying, well, I do my little thing here in my backyard and that's enough. And me thinking, no, that's not enough. And if even people which have somewhat of an awareness are not willing to step out of their comfort zone and do bigger things to bring change about. This is kind of piggy banking. No, what do you say, Sid? When you follow up on some, we had a podcast not too long ago where we talked about how much resources we use and stuff like that. So I will link that in the show notes. But I really found myself being angry and being fearful. And that is not serving me at all. It's not making my life good at all. And as we know, if you're angry at someone and you are like, well, you have to do this or that, it's not going to change their minds. It just makes people retreat in a shell or just say, well, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So that's why this quote really spoke to me.
If we have to choose, I think it's better to choose hope upon fear. So what I find interesting in this quote is that, yes, it's always a choice. It's a choice if we are afraid or if a choice if we are hopeful. This is the quality of the mind, right? So the mind has always a tendency to go toward the negative, right? It's so easy to see all the negative. It requires a little more effort to see the positive in life. Well, for me, there is many things that I could think about this quote is that if I have to choose between fear and hope, I would really recommend to choose hope. But both of them, there's something in common, is that both of them, they are a projection to the future, right? I am afraid that in the future, our children are not going to have a healthy earth, or I am hoping that in the future, we will have taken good care of Earth, right? So both of them, they are projection to the future. The thing about the future is that's unpredictable, right? So I would think that just to help the mind to be more steady and more calm, it's important to come back to the present moment, right? And in the present moment, what can I do to change the future in a way I wish it to see? What you do in the present moment is that you are gathering all your recycling trash and you put them where they can be recycled, right? Now there is something that we don't have control of. We don't have much control of the government, what they are doing, what policies they are going to vote, right? So we can hope that they are going to move in the good direction. But again, as it is about hope or fear, there are projections in the future. So we have always to come back to the present moment to live the best we can. So I like this quote, and that's so interesting that you came up with this quote because recently I was reading a book, and the book was about all the old Vedic philosophy that were yoga and Ayurveda are coming from. But in this book, it was written that, yeah, that's so interesting. That was almost the same quote. If you have to choose between fear and hope, then choose hope, right? But after that,
Mhm.
he explained in the book that it's very important to come back to the present moment and do what we have to do right here, right now, without expectation. Because this is our expectations that make us suffer, right? So a simple example, let's say that you are planting tomatoes in your backyard. So you put, you hope that you actually have tomatoes. Now, you cannot be for sure that there will be tomatoes in 3 weeks. But what you can do is bring a healthy soil for your plant and water it and make sure that there is no raccoon or skunk that are going to eat the plant, stuff like that. And that is keeping you in the present. Of course, you hope that you actually have tomato plant, but at the same time, you are not expecting them, because if you are expecting them and you have no tomatoes, then you are suffering, right? So you do what you have to do right here, right now.
Well, I'm suffering on
Oh,
the tomato thing because the prairie
well,
dogs
I'm
ate all
sorry
my
that you planted
plants.
tomatoes. It was just an example. but that's and I think that is more, it's so important for us. It's really about management of our own mind, because again, the mind has always a tendency to create misery, right? To bring us to what we are afraid of. The thing that is, again, is that whatever we are afraid of is not from the past, right? Because past is more about regrets or guilt, but never about fear. Fear is always about the future, right? So we have to cultivate this equanimity. I hope we say that way, equanimity in the mind. How do we build that? By focusing on what I am doing today. And when you think that you are afraid that what you do is not enough and the people are doing is not enough, that's not true. Because remember, you are the example for lots of people. So maybe you think that people around you, they don't care, but you plant a seed maybe to your grandchildren, right? So you plant a seed in all the people who are listening to us, and it's not nothing. It's big. It's big. So, and it was in the topic when we were about sustainable living, is that right here today, I agree a little with you. I think that we don't do enough. It's we don't do it. We need to do more.
Yeah, and that's it's the part where I feel that sometimes saying, "Oh, we just do what we can or we plant the seed" is almost like a cope out to feel better about what we are doing, even so it
But
is
that's
not
the thing.
enough.
How do you want to live? Do you want to live in your own misery and say that, oh, anyway, we are all going to die, so why bother? That the thing. If you bother, is that because deep down you have hope for the future, but you cannot be attached to the future because you don't know how the future is going to be. It's really
Right.
about, doing the best.
For
I
sure.
always come back to that. I do my best right here, right now. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I have no control on it, right? So, but I'm focusing on what I am doing right here, right now. Like I changed the way I use product for my hair and all that. That's the most natural as possible with the less packaging as possible. It is one of my contribution, right? It might be not enough, but it is something, right? And again, if we stay in this type of set of mind that it's not enough and we are going nowhere, why bother? Why bother? And it's because you keep doing it, right? You keep doing it because, I think also that the human being cannot live without
Yeah.
hope.
But yeah, I get it.
Hope
And
is essential for us living. Even a person
mhm.
who is living in prison, for 20, 30 years, they have hope. Hope that something is going
That's
to
true.
happen to them that will make them happy. And there is people, they are in prison for a very, very long time, and yet they find inner peace and
Right.
and happiness there because they discovered something about themselves. So I think that as long as the mind is focused on the external world, right?
Right.
So we are destroying the planet, blah, blah, blah. We are suffering, right? So what we can do is recenter ourselves and really find equanimity in the mind, right? So, and find our inner personal growth from it. And then we feel better. So I would say that the trick is that really, if we look at the outer world, we suffer. But if we bring it back, so how does it help me for my inner growth? I mean, for you, and whatever it's true for you. But for me, what makes me peace of mind is that I do the best what I can with what I have, right? If I was a politician, I could vote something that I would have more power for the external world. But it's what creates the transformation in me and bring peace, right? So it's a big work to detach ourselves from the external world, detach ourselves from the result to really stay focused on what I'm doing right here, right now. Yeah. So this quote is very interesting because, yeah, I think that we cannot live without hope.
Definitely not. And well, I believe that a lot of people do live without hope because not mental illness, but mental unwellness is a big thing right now. And you can tell by all the ads you're getting for, counseling services, for more medication, for all of that. I agree with you that a lot of that is being detached from our inner self, said we don't looking for validation from the outside, which I'm an extrovert, so I do need some validation from the outside, if it's even just not somebody saying, oh, you're doing a good job, which sometimes can feel good, but sometimes can also feel just fake, if you know what I mean, but just having conversations, having community is definitely some which does fill me. But of course, you also need to do the things of shifting whatever is a negative thought train, the feeling in your body of whatever when you don't exercise and it just everything feels not right type of a thing. And I very much agree with you that we can do what we can do. But I also feel that it can become an excuse to say, well, that's all I can do without trying.
This is a personal journey. It's a personal journey what you feel, because in your heart, if you can do more or not. In your heart, if you can become, a volunteer in some places, or, create a podcast to share with the world. So, I mean, I think that is a personal journey. I don't look for excuses to continue what I'm doing. I'm doing what I have to do. And I think that if we feel that we are kind of making ourselves happy, think that it's because we know we can do more.
Well, I wasn't
Yeah.
talking about myself right now. This was my judgmental self speaking. Said I have encountered a lot of people which are doing nothing or very little, in my opinion, and just say, well, this is the best I can do. And I believe said, we are surrounded by quotes, and I'm almost like was hesitant to bring up another quote because we also are on social media and you can see lots of quotes going around and people sharing. I feel there's a lot of emptiness behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Does it
Yeah.
make sense? Coming back to having felt upset or angry or whatever, just encountering a lot of people which really don't care. but will say, oh, I'm doing the best I can. And maybe that's like super judgmental to assume that people could do more. But at the same time, there is also a lot of comfort in just keep doing what you're doing and telling yourself that's all you can do.
Okay, so here we are. Come back to a book that you and me we read like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't remember, very long time ago. Her name is Byron Kathy, right? Remember this book? Love What Is.
Yeah, I
And
do.
she says something that I think it's very
Mhm.
interesting to remember ourselves time to time, is that in whose business I am. There is three type of business. There is my business, the business of other, and the business of God, or something that we cannot prevent. So, for example, a hurricane is the business of God because no one can prevent a hurricane. But when you say, I think that some people they say that they do the best they can, it's just an excuse for them not to do more. Actually, you are in their business.
But that's true. But I
Yes.
also feel I want to disagree with you because the amount of hurricanes we are seeing is our business because there is plenty of science saying by having raised the temperature in the oceans, we have more hurricanes, and the rapid rise of temperature is definitely caused by human doings, whatever, driving our cars all over, carbon in the air, and so forth and so forth. So yes, it is God's business in a sense that you and I cannot go and hold our hand out and say, stop hurricane, stop. But we have all those other actions we could take and could have taken, and we are not. So by me thinking about other people not doing the steps it takes to create, less of whatever we're talking about, trash in the street, it is also my business because let's say people just throwing trash out, right? I will have to look at the trash or I have to go and pick it up. So by them throwing
Mm.
the trash out, it has become my business too. Does it make sense at all? I totally remember us doing the
Yes, yes.
work, which that's what she's calling it, right? Doing the work, going, yeah. And I do have philosophical problems with that because I feel it's easy to say, well, if somebody else doesn't want to be aware, it's their business. But in the end, it impacts me and impacts how I'm
Yeah.
living. So it has become my business. I want to give you another example. So I used to read the newspaper and there were like Dear Abby or whatever columns. And sometimes I find those interesting. And one person was writing in about a family member not taking care of themselves, having diabetes, and her health's going down with making choices which are not good for her, right? So whoever the answering person was saying, well, that's not your business. That's her choice to do those things, right? But if you are the relative who then has to take care of a person who chose to become ill in her body, then it is your business because now your life is drastically changed because that person decided to make bad choices. Does it
I
make sense
completely
at all?
agree with you. Then it's going to be your business to take your own decision. If that's your decision to help the person who didn't take care of herself, she has diabetes, and you have to take care of her, well, that's one way. The other way, you can make peace with it, or you can decide that, you didn't take care of yourself. I don't have the strength, I don't have the money to take care of yourself. What do you want to do? So, I mean, again, I fully understand, but you cannot make people do some things they don't want to do.
That's true. That
And
is
and
true.
that is, if you want them to do what is right, ultimately right, then you have to suffer because there is no way they are going to, if they don't want to do it, they won't do it. And so it's not to be mean or anything, but that's the reality of things. And I agree with you, when you have someone in your family who doesn't take care of herself or himself, whatever, and then you want to have the consequences. It's a conversation that maybe we have we have to take, is that, okay, what do I do? You are not taking care of yourself, so you might have I don't know, lung cancer because you are smoking so much you don't want to stop smoking. What do I do? Right? So you don't want to change. How do I protect myself? How do I can live with that? Right? So, and that is your journey. That is your journey, because they won't change. They won't, you know, and particularly with people who are smoking you.
Well, there's a lot of other habits too, you know.
Well,
And yeah, as a society, I feel we're in a habit of, and even forced into the habit of just having so much extra. Or look at us in California or here on the rest. If you want to get anywhere, you have to get in the car and drive. There, unless you can, you know, ride your bicycle for 50 miles very easy, but then you might get run over by a car. So it's not really safe to do that. So a lot of choices are kind of taken from us. But I also feel like somewhere along the line, we made a choice to support that, right?
well, you know, if a person, let's say, I like to stay a little with your example that you have someone in your family, she or he doesn't take care of themselves. The choice is theirs at the end of the day, you know. So, and we have a choice to do. The choice might it's always what I say, we always have a choice. It might be a bad choice or a bad choice, but we have a choice. So we choose just to let it be. We choose to help them. I think that the most important is that when we take a decision of our action, then work to make peace with it, you know. So let's say, for example, I live with my dad. My dad doesn't take care of himself, and I see that he has diabetes, and so he doesn't want to stop eating sugar. So if I choose to help him when he's going to be very sick, then I have to make peace with this decision. Because if I decide to take care of him and I have resentment, I'm going to be miserable. So I have to make peace. And that is my responsibility, to take care of myself and make peace with the decision I make. Now, I decide not to help my dad. I say, well, you know that you didn't take care of yourself. I don't have the time and the energy to help you. So you are doing whatever you are doing. And if we go regularly on the emergency room, that will be what it will be. So I have also to make peace with this decision. And I'm not saying that one decision is better than the other. It depends of who we are. And I'm not here to judge one, because I think that when you are in front of such a difficult decision, I mean, it's a bad decision or a bad decision.
Right. But I guess that's my point. Like, whichever way it goes, it's probably hard to make peace with either one, because either one is difficult. Either you're a caretaker, which is a difficult position to be in, or you're not. And now you're exposed to all kinds of criticism of, like, oh, you're a bad daughter or whatever it is. And again, I understand what you're saying. You have to make peace in your mind with whatever decision it is. Still, you're forced into very difficult decision making by the behavior of somebody else. And I guess my whole point is that we have a lot of things we are experiencing which are completely out of our control, what we can do. And it's really hard for me to go like, oh, I just want you to do whatever and be happy. And I find happiness within myself, because I feel big changes have been made in the past by people not doing that. You know, like said, let's talk about like race relation in this country, which I don't want to get deeply into it, but the change has been made by people being activists, and some have suffered greatly for it. And they have, whatever, people which went to enroll people to vote, or people which sat in the front of the bus or on the counter mixed together where that was illegal. And they have done that because they didn't say, oh, I'm doing my part in myself and I'm happy in myself and I don't care what else happens.
Everyone is not an activist. If you look at those times when there were activists in the street, and so everyone is not activist. And today that's the same thing. There is still people that are activists for the human right, for the environment, for healthcare. So we have activists, but everyone is not an activist. For example, I'm really aware of a lot of things and I share as much wisdom as I can. I'm not an activist. It's not in my nature. It doesn't make me someone wrong. It just make me
Yeah,
who I am,
I
you
guess I
know?
have more of that
Mm.
activist bred into me.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
And we need people like you, Marianne, because you are screaming loud and clear for a clear message as well. And people need the inspiration. And activists are very people who are carrying a lot of hope, to come back to our quote, right? And they act now, right? And they stay focused on what they do. Is the open mind, right? Is to understand that not everyone is an activist. Yeah, I think that that's we have a great combo between you and me, because you definitely are an activist.
Okay, so I just need to get to the place of hope in my inner self.
Yeah, yeah. And again, always remember when you say something, when you scream something, even when you say, well, I'm a little judgmental of the other people. Um, well, again, you are an inspiration for other people, and we need you. We need you. And at the same time, maybe on your side, you can say, okay, I understand that not every people are activists, and not every people are doing what I'm doing, not because they don't care, but it's just not their nature, you know. There is always a leader of the pack, and there is the pack.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Maybe
Anyways, on
you
this,
are a big wolf. You are the big wolf for the pack.
lots of responsibility comes with being the lead wolf. Yeah, so, and feeling a little bit ineffective in that. I guess we talked about it too as we get older. Yeah, it was its Finding Good News episode, I believe. So sometimes you look at stuff and you go like, did I waste my time? Because we thought we went forward and we had things taken care of, and now we are slipping back again in different ways. That's very general speaking, but I'm thinking of things like breastfeeding in public, right? Where at one point we thought, okay, we got it. You know, people are realizing how important it is for the baby to have breast milk and blah blah blah. And now we're again at a place where the breast is considered like a sex object and not, and people get all freaked out if they see a baby sucking on a breast in public. And it becomes so frustrating, you know, when it's like, oh, the progress has left again. But anyways, let's find hope. I'm Debbie Downer.
Yeah, I would just like, maybe we can finish on this maybe touch, is that I think it's when we talked in the episode the good news, it was a reflection of what we had done so far and the impact we had on the world. But at the same time, it's good to have the reflection, not stay too much in the past, because the past is a distraction from the present. So I agree that there is some step back I see in the world, that you would say, that's weird that we do step back. But maybe we have to move again forward, and let's focus on the present, because again, we spiral into, well, everything I did had no impact on the world, so did I do it? And what is the bottom line of that is that we are just sad, right? So
Yep.
we're not moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. figuring that out. Yeah, so I think it would be really nice to hear from people how they have been dealing with it, because I know a lot of people have dedicated their life to one thing or another. I would love to hear from what has worked and what hasn't worked, and how people have been able to keep going, because the hero stories are always people which had so much against them and they kept chipping away, and then boom, they did it, right? I think there are a lot of us which don't have the boom, we did it in the end. More so chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, and then it's like, oh, we're still at the beginning stages. I would love to hear from people about their experiences and how they either pivoted. I can see going into a cave and just going, world, leave me alone. I just do my thing, which is a little bit, it could be interpreted what you're saying about coming into your own mindfulness, into your own mind, and just into yourself, which could also mean, okay, I'm going in my cave and then I don't want to be around people anymore. Does it make sense?
Uh, you know, both possibilities might be true for people. People they just want to be alone in their cave, and maybe people they find inner peace. But I believe that all the people who are making a big impact on the world, they also cultivated a lot of inner peace. Yeah. So
So,
again,
if you're listening, let us
yeah,
know how you cultivate inner peace in your life.
good. Yes, peace. And how you transform fear into hope.
Curious minds.
Yes, have a great day.
You too. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye. Thank you so much for sharing your precious time with us. We love to have a conversation with you, and there are several places you can reach us. One is Instagram, Explore SoMa Podcast. That's mostly Marianne speaking to you there. On Facebook, there's a page, also Explore Summer Podcast, and Sophie is the one talking to you there. And then we have a Patreon account, Explore Summer Podcast, and both of us are hopping in and out, and we are really trying to build communities there. If you want to join us, we would love it. And of course, you can support us there, but you can also be there and be part of the conversation. If there is no money in your pocket to spare, we totally get that. Believe us, we have been there. Thank you so much. Take care until we meet again.